Hello and welcome. I'm Sadhika Tiwari and you're watching Eco India. And we begin today's episode with fish, fisheries and fishermen. Fishermen in India have always relied on traditional knowledge and techniques to practice their trade. And while their knowledge pool has remained the same for generations, the challenges that they now face have dramatically transformed. Climate change has turned several constants into variables. What we need is a community-based approach that reaches out to these people and talks to them in the language of their struggles and challenges. We head down south in the country to find out a radio channel which is doing exactly the same.
To the people of the Rameshwaram Island in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, this voice on the radio is a familiar one. The radio jockey isn't sitting at some studio. He's right here at this buzzing fish auction in the coastal town of Pamban in Rameshwaram. Kadalosai is India's first community radio station for the fishing community and has been making an impact in the region for 7 years now.
Mass media doesn't talk about our needs all the time. They talk about issues or success stories with a large impact. So it's important to have a community radio station that caters to our needs when others don't.
The voice you heard is from Captain Raj, a fisherman turned trader who goes live on Kadalosai to announce the auction rates of the numerous varieties of fish that arrive at these shows.
Sardines first went for 50 rupees. 15 kilos would go for 600 or 700. The same fish would be sold for just 40 rupees towards the end of the auction. We then announced the rates.
Hundreds of fishing families are dependent on the seafood supply chain in this region for survival. Be it this fisherwoman who sells fish on the streets or this trader who sells it to other small businesses, the little piece of information from Captain Raj makes a huge difference in their incomes.
Customers place an order the previous day, let's say for a kilo of sardines. Once I've heard Captain Raj, I call my customer and say, 5 kilos of sardines costs this much today. Do you still need it? A transaction is established. The information I get from him serves as a tool for my business. I get this benefit because of Kadalosai.
Kadalosai is broadcast to 120,000 people within a 20-kilometer radius from Pamban. The channel hosts a variety of shows that covers various topics about the environment that are fundamental to the lives of the fishing community. One show proved to be a huge success amongst the locals, and it's called Samudram Palakka, which translates to Understand the Sea.
I talk about the body composition of different types of fish, what they consume, what nutrients they offer, and which region they're available in, and other sea-related information like coral reefs and seaweeds.
Educating people on the biodiversity of the sea is essential as 47 coastal hamlets in the island, including Pamban, border the Gulf of Mannar biosphere, one of the richest coastal regions in the entire country. This region faces a series of threats that affect the viability of the ecosystem in the long run. And it includes destructive fishing practices, overharvesting of marine resources, ocean pollution, and so much more.
We ask the offenders why they're doing it and what their alternative is. I take that information to my team, and we then take it to the officials. Because their intention isn't to destroy the sea, they do it for survival. We focus on awareness without making anyone suffer.
An important species that needed urgent conservation in this region is turtles. This species is widely consumed by the locals here under the premise of false health benefits. The team put all of their efforts into eliminating these myths and educating the misinformed public by introducing the Kadal Kapan program.
We made an announcement that if you rescue a turtle and send us video proof, we'll give you 1,000 rupees or $12 US, and along with it an award that certifies you as a savior of the sea.
And this created an impact. Since the start of the Kadal Kapan program, they have received over 50 videos from the community over a span of just 3 years. Community radio stations have the power to make such region-specific initiatives a huge success.
Instead of just telling people not to hunt turtles, we tell them about the entire food chain process. Fishermen started understanding its importance.
As soon as it sees the ocean, it starts moving its legs really quickly. It eats jellyfish and other weeds and keeps the sea clean. And so it's important that we save these turtles.
The most loyal audience base is the people of a small fishing hamlet called Chinnapalam in the island. And Chinnapalam is unlike any other village in this entire coastline.
In no other area do men and women go fishing together. Only in Chillapanam village, men and women go and return from fishing. We don't get any rest.
The people of Chinnapalam are solely dependent on the Crusader Island, one of the 21 islands in the Gulf of Mannar biosphere. For the majority of the people living here, Kadalosai is their only source for entertainment and information on the island.
The radio station is all we have. We listen to it day and night.
If there's a cyclone warning, they alert us immediately. As soon as we hear the news, we pack up our things and come back to the shores of our village.
They used to just play songs, so when Lenin came to interview us one day, I asked him to start announcing the time, and they did. I don't know how to wear a watch or tell the time. I listen to the time to know when to cast my nets in the sea.
We can even say that their feedback has shaped us into what we are today.
The strong foothold that Kadalosai now has in Rameshwaram has helped them in creating conversation surrounding climate vulnerability. And it begins with understanding the impacts of climate change that the fishing community experience on a daily basis.
Earlier, we would stand outside for hours on end and lay nets under the sun. But today, we're not even able to stand for half an hour to load and unload the nets. The sun is that harsh.
Similarly, there is a change in the fish we get during the spawning season. Fishes like sardines and velra aren't there and are declining rapidly today.
Kadalosai has managed to create an impact among fishing communities at a grassroots level in Rameshwaram. And their efforts are visible with how people have accepted this information that was fed to them.
We don't scare people with end-of-the-world stories, but we do tell them about climate change and that we're the first to face the impact. We explain the scientific reasoning behind it. At Kadalosai, they keep repeating topics that we're not aware of. With time, we really understood those issues. People are now really aware.
Coastal communities are amongst the world's most vulnerable to climate change impacts. The efforts carried out by community radio stations like Kadalosai serve as a model that adds to the resilience of coastal communities across the world.
It's not just the fishing communities on the coast that are struggling with reduced profits. So too are those whose livelihoods depend on inland waters, because these are under threat, among other things from the pollution that we are directly responsible for. Conservation is critical, like this report from Kashmir shows.
Nestled in the northern Himalayas, Wular Lake lies deep in India's Kashmir Valley. More than 2,000 families depend on its water to earn their livelihood. Firdaus Ahmad has been fishing the lake for over 20 years, but his catch these days is not what it used to be.
I've cast my net around 40 times since the morning, but I've only caught a few fish. All the other fishermen face the same problems too. Some may catch up to 2 kilos in a day, while others return empty-handed.
The diminished catch and trash that is regularly caught in his nets point to a deeper problem in Wular's ecosystem. Over the last century, the lake has shrunk to half its original size. And the water that remains is being polluted by dumped waste and untreated sewage. As part of a multi-pronged approach to revive the lake's biodiversity and its capacity to hold water, Volunteers like Nasir Ahmad Dar are removing garbage across the lake with their bare hands.
Garbage from numerous towns and villages has been dumped into Wullar Lake and polluted its water. Fish that used to live in clean water, like snow trout, rainbow trout, or other native fish species, were the most severely impacted. We started to clean up the lake on our own to really send a message to people that they should not dump household garbage into Wullar Lake.
They coordinate their work with a larger team of local volunteers working with the government under the Wullar Conservation and Management Authority. They have been tasked with restoring the lake's ecological health, and Mudassir Mahmood is leading the effort.
If you see the silted up area of lake which needs eco restoration, it's around 27 square kilometer, which we are doing on an accelerated pace now. From last 2 years, we have already desilted around 4.35 square kilometers, and we intend to desilt the other areas of lake so that the water fragmentation which has taken place in the lake is restored.
Desilting the lake increases the amount of water it can hold. The conservation team has deployed massive suction dredgers that can clear millions of cubic meters of silt within the space of just a year. Additionally, the teams are building permanent embankments to prevent fresh silt further upstream from washing into the lake.
The lake area has been consolidated. We are further trying to consolidate in form of a permanent bund so that there is no encroachment. The encroachment within the lake.
The final drastic part of the strategy to save the lake, the removal of 500,000 willow trees that were planted here in the 19th century. Studies show that these non-native trees strike deep roots, thus strengthening the soil and creating a barrier at the edges of the lake that collects silt. Over decades, this has resulted in the lake shrinking in size. But the same study also warned about possible risks like soil erosion and the loss of a natural carbon sink from cutting the trees. Firdaus Ahmad sees no alternative but to continue setting off into the lake in the hope of catching enough fish to earn a living.
Fishermen can only eat if there is enough water in the lake. Our livelihood vanishes when water levels drop because fish can only thrive in clean water.
For fishermen and families living in the area, the conservation plan is a race against time. They hope the urgent efforts of the authorities and locals working together will help to restore Wullar Lake, boost the local economy, and ensure access to clean water.
Give a man a fish and he will be hungry again tomorrow. Teach him how to fish and he will empty the ocean by 2050. Well, these are not my words, they come directly from the Twitter meme lords. Illegal fishing is a reality across the globe and it is damaging entire ecosystems. But there are people who are doing a little more than just making memes about it. We met an Italian fisherman who has single-handedly taken on the illegal fishing trade to save the dwindling stocks in the Mediterranean.
Paolo Fanciulli works a long day. It's late in the night by the time he returns to the port of Telemone in his fishing boat. But Paolo does more than fish. He's also fighting illegal catch methods, particularly the use of trawl nets just above the seabed. His battle has made him lots of enemies.
The illegal fishers hate me. They've tried to intimidate me. I've gotten death threats. I've been banned from all the fish markets. And the worst part is that instead of protecting me, the authorities have threatened me too.
These marble sculptures are at the root of the conflict. Paolo dropped them there to save fish stocks and corals. His method has proven effective because illegal fishers' expensive trawl nets get tangled on the sculptures and tear.
The illegal fishers don't like me at all. The big players don't want me to sink these blocks of marble, these artworks, in the sea because they can't fish anymore. But they're required to fish 5 kilometers from the coast, and the blocks are only 500 meters from the shore.
Paolo has been working the seas since he was 15. He's seen how industrial fishing has got bigger and bigger in his homeland. Meanwhile, the fish stocks have got smaller and smaller. At some point, he started catching far fewer fish. It started looking like Paolo and other small fishers might not catch enough to survive.
Traditional fishing means the nets stay above the seabed without destroying the ecosystem. During industrial fishing, they drop trawl nets onto the seafloor. They're pulled with chains that weigh tons. That wrecks everything. It's as if a hunter would burn down an entire forest just to kill wild boar.
To protect the sea and still pursue his passion, Paolo launched fishing tourism. He takes travellers on his fishing boat and wins them over to his cause. On each voyage, he tells of his opponents.
The illegal fishers don't even stop at marine protected areas.
He also tells his guests of how a quarry owner once gave him 100 blocks of marble, and how artists from all over the world used them to make sculptures, each weighing several tons. He also recounts how he overcame bureaucratic hurdles and recalls the boat he used to bring the sculptures out to sea and place them on the seabed. That marked the birth of Casa dei Pesci, House of Fish, an underwater sculpture park. Fish stocks here have already recovered because the fish can again find safe places to spawn.
The aim of our work is to protect the sea and restore what humans have destroyed.
But Paolo says consumers have something to contribute as well.
It's like I always say, we'll save the environment at our own tables, because if we keep eating fish that are caught industrially or farmed using hormones, then the illegal fishers will never change their catch methods. They'll just keep on producing and fishing using a system that is no longer sustainable.
Paolo's strategy has had another consequence too.
The dolphins have returned because they find lots of fish here. They know that there's food for them along the coast.
But the ongoing battle against illegal fishing has been grueling for Paolo.
I often feel sad and disappointed. But then when I'm with the guests who come on my boat, I get the strength to say, you have to keep on going.
So Paolo Fanciulli sets off again each morning to save his sea.
Recommended by doctors and grandmothers, from a glass of milk to cottage cheese, Indians equate dairy with a healthy and nutritious diet. But what if, in the name of health, we've been ingesting toxins? Well, turns out there are a lot of problems with the Indian milk. And to solve these problems, we need action, both at the production and at the source.
Drinking milk wasn't always an option for Rupali Kakre's daughter. When she was younger, the milk Rupali was buying from the market was making her daughter really sick. For months, the child suffered from a severe stomach infection. Several medical tests later, her pediatrician confirmed the source: adulterated milk.
When doctor asked us to stop her milk, so within a month her health improved. And during that time I researched more on the quality of milk available in the market. So I came to know that 79% of the milk which is available in the market is adulterated.
Milk may be adulterated by farmers or retailers by mixing water or other additives to increase the volume of milk for sale. So Rupali decided to take matters into her own hands. On farmland she owns on the outskirts of Pune. Here, she set out to produce her own high-quality, toxin-free milk. Her research pointed to the importance of good quality green fodder for the production of nutritious and safe-to-drink milk. To grow healthy fodder for her cattle, she opted for the organic hydroponics technique. Plants are grown using water-based nutrient solutions instead of soil, without pesticides or fertilizers.
So it takes around 7 days to grow completely, and it is prepared as a fodder. So normally we give 2 trays to each cow. So when we started giving this hydroponic fodder to our cows, we have seen drastically the results, like the quantity of milk is increased and quality of milk is difference. We saw the total 23% of the yield increased, and 10 to 11% of the values, nutritional values, are changed.
But for most of India's dairy farmers and their cattle, the story is starkly different. India has nearly 300 million heads of cattle, producing about 200 million metric tons of milk every year. According to a 2019 survey by India's food regulator, 1 in 10 liters of that milk could be unsafe for consumption due to elevated levels of toxins. The most dangerous culprit is a carcinogen called aflatoxin.
Aflatoxin comes from the feed. If you feed more of green fodder, aflatoxin will be less. But if you feed more of ingredients and the old, because of aflatoxin will develop with some moisture in that time. So I fully agree. There have been certain reports that Indian aflatoxin level has increased, but then there needs to be controlled only and only at the feed level.
Dealing with this issue would need to begin at the thousands of dairy farms like the one owned by Ashok More and his son Sandesh More. They started their dairy business 8 years ago, but struggled to turn a profit.
Fodder is very expensive. It's very difficult to run the dairy business if you are buying fodder most times. It is like committing financial suicide. How can I spend more on something that doesn't give me enough yield to make any profits?
Milk animals need large amounts of feed, but grazing pastures have increasingly been turned into farmland. So most dairy farmers buy cattle feed from the market. Cows are fed a mix of dry and green feed. To keep overheads down, farmers often opt for low-quality dry feed. Dry feed that is old or stored in humid conditions has a high chance of being infected with fungi that produce aflatoxin. When cows consume such feed, the toxin ultimately ends up in their milk. Livestock expert Dinesh Bhosle says cheap fodder impacts dairy production across the industry.
Unfortunately, what's happening, whether it's a cooperative or whether it's a private dairies to whom farmer is selling milk, they are supplying cattle feed, but the quality of the cattle feed is not at par. Means they are trying to supply the cheaper cattle feed to farmer, which is not helpful to the animal.
Low quality feed also affects the amount of milk cattle produce. In a bid to boost yield and quality, the Mores turned to the services of a startup called eFeed. The company's app lists the dietary and nutritional requirements of different breeds of indigenous cattle, and it offers solutions on how to optimize their productivity.
Most of the farmers we saw, they were searching online on how to make their own feed. The problem is they don't know how much to feed, and they often don't know what else can they mix to make it more nutritious. So there's the information layer which was actually missing over there. Now, when we give the application to the farmers, now application has basically a nutrition calculator, which is basically you tell me what you have, and I will tell you what deficiency of nutrition basically is in the diet.
The information supplied by the app has helped the Mores produce not just more milk, but also improved its quality.
With the premix, the milk fat content improved and the supply became more consistent.
Milk is a staple in India, a country struggling to meet the nutritional needs of its burgeoning population. Ensuring cattle get adequate feed can help farmers improve production and the milk that people drink.
While this might seem like a very, very healthy choice, it might not be. And well, they say we are what we eat or drink. And if that's true, maybe we should pay a little more attention to what we put on our body and where does it come from. Well, that's it for today. Let me know what did you like the most about today's episode and what would you like to see more of. You can write to us at ecoindia@dw.com and keep coming back every week for a ride through the rivers or a taste of the farms. Until then, have a great week. Take care. See you soon. Namaskar.